This is Rick Collins in Dallas.
And I'm Dustin Zerrer in Austin. Thanks for joining Texas Rugby Monthly. So great to have everybody come on and watch us as we chat about all the great things that are happening in the big state of Texas as it pertains from rugby, from the high school level to collegiate to the club level and all the way up to MLR. The goal of this video and this podcast really is to sit down and talk about news and events that are happening throughout the state of Texas. What we want to do to start off with, each team, each city has their own MLR team right now. So we want to start off with Grant to talk about what's going on in Houston. Grant, can you give us the top three things that have happened so far this summer in Houston?
So yeah, top three things. Basically, the coaching staff hadn't changed. Still have Paul Healy as head coach, Paul Emmerich as your skills and conditioning coach, our skills coach, Ashley as our strength conditioning coach, and Campbell Johnson as our forward coach. We have added a director of corporate partnerships, Sloan Evans. She came over from the XFL, the Houston Roughnecks, and then we've signed on Nick Hildebrand, a Canadian prop, and Tiana Rasmus, a hooker from the AGs, as well as traded all of our collegiate draft picks for Robert Povey, a Canadian halfback from the Utah Warriors. Re-signed Cecil Garber, Kieran Farmer, Luke Bishop, Malachi Esdell, Matthias Frey, Sam Windsor, and Zach Pangelinan, and we've released Tim Stanfield to free agency. And if you've been following Tim, you know that he's become a professional gamer now and first-person shooters. And then we've added the senior academy. Yeah.
Wait, okay. Can we get some specifics? Like, how did he just decide he's going to do professional?
You're going to have to follow Tim and find that out. He just got into it, found out he was good, and could make some money at it, I guess.
All right.
I don't know.
Okay, well, at least there's a second career for some rugby players now.
Yeah, they're as much as they play video games, you would think that probably is their second career.
Yeah,
I mean, they could do that all season and fully support themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then finally, we've added Rugby HTX as the senior academy team. I'm the team manager of that. Paul Emmerich's the head coach. Brett Mills is our forwards coach, and our attack and backs coach is Taylor Howden. And we brought on Josh Schnell, a local guy who played with Katy Barbarians and then went over to England to get his S&C degree. And he's over at interning here in an S&C job. And also Jeffrey Steele comes on as a prop and an S&C coach with us.
Nice. Hey, wow. I had a question about Houston with the HTX. So the last couple of years it had been West Houston, right?
Yes.
As kind of an academy team, right?
Yes.
A development team. How did HTX come about, and how did that transition occur?
So, there's a gap between club rugby and the MLR. We all know that, and it's a pretty serious gap. It's a pretty serious gap between college and club. Yeah. And we just weren't getting the gap bridged the way we wanted to. And West Houston is growing as a club, and they're growing kind of in a different direction than that is. Plus, their new facilities, which are brilliant, by the way, are another 13 miles outside of town almost. And I mean, they're
really
out,
west.
they're right out on the Brazos River.
Ooh. Yeah, I played in an old boys tournament down there last year, and it is way out there.
Yeah, and so I mean, yeah, I didn't know they had. Yeah, but anyway, yeah, it's out. I mean, it's there, but it's there. I mean, it's huge. It's 34 acres.
Yeah.
Plenty of parking, plenty of places just to pitch a tent out under a shade tree. They're working on the. They got most of the water moccasins they got rid of, and they're working on the fire ants. And so
for those outside of Texas, they may not get that reference, but yeah, a lot of most Texas rugby pitches, you got to deal with fire ants, water moccasins if you're close to the river, if you're close to any rivers, and then scorpions.
Yeah,
the big one. Yeah,
especially when you used to play at the Polo Grounds in Victoria. I don't know if you guys ever played down there, but I mean, scorpions were everywhere down there.
Yeah, it's literally underneath the goalpost in the try zone, like you said.
Scorpions.
But Rugby HTX basically evolved from that. I mean, we've learned a lot of lessons here in Houston from the first year where we were trying to loan players out to clubs, and that just didn't work because clubs in the U.S. just don't understand the loan program that goes on in England, Ireland, any of the UK countries, and even in France.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff just doesn't translate over here, and it's not understood. So, and if you don't explain it to them and have a really good understanding between two clubs how it's going to work, it's hard to manage. And then with the eligibility requirements of USA Rugby, when it comes to club play, it's even harder to work. Then it's the next step, you get into the liability insurance and the workers' comp insurance that the MLR teams have to carry, and it just doesn't make sense monetarily for them to let that happen to their players. So, I mean, that's those kind of things with West Houston growing their youth rugby huge and growing their old boys and getting outside of town, and then the SaberCats looking at the monetary things that they have to deal with as a business. It went in separate directions. So when the memorandum of understanding expired at the end of last season, there was just no intent to extend it.
Yeah.
And so that's where Rugby HTX came in. So
And I
and Rugby HTX is actually something that Justin Fitzpatrick and I sat down and ironed out in the right in the 2017-2018 season of rugby. And I've got a document here in my Google files from them that we drew up, and most of that is in that document are the guts that I gave to Paul to extend to the Rugby HTX idea.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
how is HTX going to function within the structure of MLR versus USA Rugby? Who are they going to play? I know there's ATL 404 or whatever that could be an opportunity. Are there other clubs that would be within kind of some kind of playing normalized structure for them?
So Rick, great question, and I'll answer this the same way I answer players who ask the same question, which has been almost every day for the past 2 weeks. We're looking to get 16 to 20 games a year for our players.
Yeah. Now,
of course, that has to do with return to play protocols, right? When we get into phase 3, then we can start playing. But right now we're in phase 2. It's not going to happen, right? So a lot of that depends on that. We're looking at having 6 games in the fall and maybe a 7th in December. And then and those are just all be friendlies, except and one if RTP protocols go down, will be in NOLA with the NOLA Academy and 404 Academy.
Kind of like a round robin.
Yeah, and that's something we kind of we're talking about getting going, and we're working with Ryan Fitzgerald to get going so that we can do this every year and help our academy teams get off the ground. And we want to be basically bring it on and have the Southern teams be able to come to, make the run from Dallas, Austin, Houston, NOLA, Atlanta, and just change off year to year for this round robin event where we can all get in there, knock the rust off, see who our new players are, and go forward. Yeah. And then we've applied to be part of the TRU D1 men's competition.
That was my next question.
We've requested that we do not advance to any playoffs, even if we're in position to do so at the end of the season. And that's something we want to do because, as you guys know, if the last 3 years, the academy teams haven't really done anything until the April-May timeframe in MLR. So that's really the season for those academy teams to start flourishing and start playing each other. So when we get into that timeframe, we'd like to have that time to play those academies instead of spending extra money going to play in a national championship round or regional round that is something we're not even interested in. It doesn't fit our model.
Yeah. And I think that, when you look at that too, there, one, you have the club level who could probably look at that and say, oh, you guys are just sandbagging and bringing, other players down. And I know that the loan process is
it's the same thing everybody has.
Everybody's going to do it. Everybody's going to ask about it. And so, I like that approach, for Houston, saying like, we're not going to go. We just want to play the games. And then what I tell people when they talk about like the quality of rugby in the state of Texas is very high, and especially at D1 level. And so, and hopefully that's the third point to it, you will see the rest of the MLR start having the developmental teams.
So you're talking
Yeah.
right into our mission and vision
Yeah.
there, Dustin.
That's
Our
good. See,
mission
I
is
know this stuff already.
our mission is to prepare players to play in the MLR.
Hmm.
And notice I didn't say play for the SaberCats.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So I mean, we fully intend to prepare players to play in the MLR anywhere they can get play and time at.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. If they get called up, they get called up. If they get called up to the SaberCats, that's where we're going to play them at. If they get called up to Austin or Dallas or wherever, that's where they're going to play
I
at.
think
So
that the NBA has a very similar structure with the G League,
Yeah.
what used to be the D League,
Yep.
where the players can they're kind of managed by the local club or their professional organization, but the players, if they're not under a two-way contract, let's say, right, they could go and play professionally. Let's say the San Antonio Spurs could pull up a player from the Mavericks minor league team or whatever. It's not like baseball where you're literally within the structure of that team until you're traded.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think there is some sort of clause in each person's contract when they sign for the G League team, but it's minimal at most. Like if you get selected, you must agree to certain terms afterward. Same thing happens. I was thinking more kind of in the MLS soccer aspect where
they loan out the players to.
Well, so now MLS, they have their developmental squads play in the USL. So it's like like Los Angeles, like LA Galaxy A side or B side or whatever they call it, and they play in the USL league, which is the same as like the Austin Bold and a couple other the smaller teams. Like I forget where they all play, but anyway, I just know the Austin Bold because since we share
and a
a
step down
Anyway,
from that's NASL.
So I actually wanted to follow up the question I asked Grant with to Dustin, which is how does that structure work with the Huns and Blacks? Is there an idea of having a development team, or I know that players kind of have filtered down to the Blacks and the Huns over the last couple of years. What is that?
Yeah, so I know this past year, we all know that there was a bit of animosity for a little while there when the Austin Elite, Austin Herd, that part of the organization when they started because of the separation. And there were a little bit of people going back and forth. This past year, at the beginning, there was actually quite a bit of it. I know that a lot of the AG players, or at that particular time as the Austin Herd players, were going and starting their training with the Blacks. I know like Roderick Waters went and played with the Blacks in Houston against West Houston, actually, before a preseason match for Houston. His former team, yeah. So I was actually thinking about that. That was kind of one of the things I was thinking about, saying somebody can play with a developmental team, development side, and go play somewhere else. Roderick's a great example, and he's fantastic. I love watching him out on our wings. But yeah, so I know that there was a lot of push at that particular time at the beginning of the year to really have kind of that back and forth. We brought some guys up from the Huns. JP Novak filled in great for us. Talk about a guy who's almost 40 years old and getting out there and playing getting his first MLR cap and actually had a great game. To Alex Reese and some other people who got a chance to get on the field because we needed spots filled, because some of our international players hadn't been able to get their visas cleared yet, which we all know is such a wonderful thing to deal with right now. Rick, you don't know yet, but you will. Great. We signed an international player. Great. You'll get him halfway through the season.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think at this time, I think that there is a push to have more of kind of the back and forth, at least to start the season. I know once you get so many caps in MLR, you actually cannot, I believe you cannot play at the club level anymore.
Yeah, 4.
Is it 4? Yeah, I thought it was 4. So I know that some people.
But those eligibility rules are old and in flux. So
that's what I was saying. I think they're getting ready to change that.
Yeah.
So
the question is, does that make sense? And the other question is if you got 4 caps, will your workers' comp insurance cover you if you get hurt in a club game?
I don't. TBD. I don't know.
Yeah. So, according to the Cats, no, it won't. And, the Cats aren't. I mean, the question there is, are you willing to risk your MLR contract getting hurt in a game that is not going to cover you, in compensation?
And certainly, as the contracts get bigger and bigger, that's going to make less and less sense.
Yeah,
players, right?
For sure.
So eventually, I think you're right that it's going to have to be a developmental side owned by or run by the professional club is going to have to be the future structure.
Yeah.
I guess the question is like, how easy is that to develop when you're still kind of on a pretty tight budget for most of these clubs?
Yeah, and the other thing we're finding out is, and the other reason Rugby HTX came into being is, so in order to develop players for the MLR, you have to have what we call the player development stool. There are three legs to the player development stool, and that's high quality coaching, that's daily training environment that equals match intensity, and it's also a competitive match schedule that make sure you get enough game time to equal the kind of game time you'll be, maybe not the level of game time, but the kind of game time that you'll be getting if you step up into the professional level.
Yeah.
And then we take and we make sure that the playbook of Rugby HTX is the same as the playbook of the Sabercats. So when these guys and they're training, they're going to physical trainings with the Sabercats, and at least one night a week they're going to be training with the Sabercats rugby wise. So when they are called up to that next level, the respect that's needed to be there, the connection that's required to play with cohesion, which we haven't seen when we've called players up in the past 3 years, and that's got to be there. And so that's another reason why this happens.
Yeah. So, well, it'll be interesting to see what happens as we kind of go forward with that. As I know this is only couple months or 2 months or so, or a month or so ago is when you officially announced it. So it's really great to see. So
we've got all but 4 players confirmed on the squad right now.
I know that's kind of exciting to know that you guys have been able to do that so far and move fast and kind of be a trendsetter for the other teams in the league to say, hey, it's time to. I know Atlanta had.
I was asking, when is the Dallas Jackals Combine? I mean, he's already had like 3 this year.
Yeah, I know, right? I have it all the time. So, but yeah, so I guess, Grant, my question for you is, so if you can give your the top three things, just real quick, what are your top 3 things that have happened so far for this season? So
top
far in
this
postseason, during COVID, summer, whatever we're going to
call
this.
So it's Rugby HTX being formed and getting to where we're at now. We had our first practice last night. It was an optional skills practice with 11 players there. They called it 20 hours before they actually had the practice. So 11 players on 20 hours notice on an optional practice. They don't have to make it. Yeah. I'm happy about that. Yep. And the most out of shape 2 guys at the practice were a CrossFit competitor and a boxer. So yeah, they weren't that out of shape, right?
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I mean, we were all kind of happy about that. So that's the number one thing. Number two thing is getting 5 players back that have been with us for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
I don't
Sam
know.
Windsor being one of them.
Yeah, I don't know how many teams have been able to do that, but that, to me, that's a huge thing. That's a core group right there. That's what you call a core group for sure. And then, I think something really important that's overlooked is bringing Sloan Evans on as the director of corporate partnerships. One of the things that people think about MLR teams is they got to get butts and seats to make money. Well, butts and seats isn't the only way you make money. Butts and seats helps you make a lot of money, but it's not the only way. And you've got to have multiple revenue streams to make a facility and a team work. And having their own facility, like last night when we were out there, the other 2 fields were being used by soccer teams, local soccer teams, and so they're renting. And the Dash was one of them. The local women's team they practice at our field, nice. at our side fields. So the fact that the front office can keep those fields being rented out, that's another revenue stream coming in, right? And so that's a key thing that's happening here in Houston that I think if any other team in the MLR can learn from it, it's that you can never have enough revenue streams. And that's got to happen. So, and like I don't know if you noticed, we had a secret shirt release.
Yeah, I never saw what happened with that.
So yeah, I mean they basically what they did, they sold it because they were only going to make a certain number of shirts, and the 99 that was on there is how many shirts they were going to make. And we got one of the shirts, and when we later found out that they only made 99 of those shirts, but that's a good little money maker. They got a sponsor to pay for those shirts, right?
Yep.
Nice.
And then they sold the shirts and basically made the money off of the shirts.
Yeah,
And while that's not a whole lot of money, it's, hey, we're going to see what this revenue stream does. Okay, that's good. Let's see what they're establishing different streams of revenue that make the organization viable finance-wise.
Nice. Cool. Well, cool. So, that's kind of everything that's going on in Houston. Rick, if you don't mind, since you're the new MLR team to the side, I'll just kind of go next.
I think it's fair.
But yeah, so for Austin, there's not been a ton of news. The one, I guess, the biggest news for me right now was the change in coaching staff. I think it's a big thing. Mick Byrne is out as the director of rugby. Again, the COVID kind of played havoc on everyone's season. And so we didn't get to see what would happen. I was really looking forward to seeing, if anything, what kind of new excitement would happen after we beat Houston for the Texas Cup. That was the end of the season. Sorry, I had to throw that one in there real quick.
That's all right.
Also, by the way, that Texas Cup is much better looking than the MLR Shield. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say it. It's a beauty.
The gigantic shield.
The gigantic shield. Around. Yeah. But the Texas Cup, for everybody that hasn't seen it yet, go online, check it out. We'll try to throw a photo on here. It's beautiful. Like, it's a beautiful piece of silverware.
It's massive.
So yeah,
massive.
As it should be in the state of Texas.
Everything's bigger.
Yeah, right.
So Dustin, one thing, you're talking about the coaching changes, right? And any coach worth his salt will tell you that there are two kinds of coaches: those that have been canned, and those that are going to be canned.
That sounds about right for Austin.
Yeah, right.
So,
how many coaches have you been through now?
Technically, it's only two, because the first two seasons. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, we've only had. That was only the second. This will be the third head coach.
Group of coaches.
Yeah,
Okay.
Third group of coaches. Last year was again at the end of season 2. Todd Clever kind of came in and they coached like the last 2 games. I don't really consider that. That was kind of the end of, the previous, style of play and stuff. But we do have Sam Harris and Mark Gerard. So 2 Aussies, again, Aussie ownership, Aussie coaches coming in. That was kind of, in my mind, it was no surprise. I kind of joked around with some other, support in the supporters group that said Kiwis are out, Aussies are in.
But the WAPA's there.
But the WAPA comes back. Yeah, exactly. So they got a big WAPA back. But Sam Harris, he's been in the top league over in Japan right now, doing some really great stuff. Mark Gerard's also has been coaching for a couple of years, but I think they bring a lot of experience. Sam actually played both codes. So he played Union, he played with the Waratahs, and I think he played with Manly Sea Eagles in rugby league in the NRL. So that's kind of interesting, because we did have 2 or 3 players for Austin who played both codes. So like Penny Taiv and who else played? Sione Fangoia, like they played as well. So it'd be kind of interesting to see if we do bring a couple league players on, because in my opinion, some rugby league players play excellent defense. They're excellent defenders. Their tackle rate is super high. So I'm kind of interested to see if we'll add some new names to that. Mark Gerard, multiple capped Wallaby, and he played for quite some time. And really exciting to see what they'll do. And of course, Jamie McIntosh, it's a player announcement that he's returning, but it's also a coaching announcement. He's a forwards coach. He's getting up there, but I mean, we saw instantly when he came in and started playing with us last season. I mean, it was immediate impact. He's a great scrummager. He's got quote unquote a new love for the game since playing here in the U.S. And so it'd be interesting to see kind of the role that he steps on. Other
he's gonna have some great support this year too.
Yeah.
I mean, you're burying the lead here.
Yeah.
The biggest announcement in Austin is that CEO has been signed to Austin.
Yes.
I mean, I'm getting to that.
But you're burying the lead. That's the biggest news.
No, man, it's like I'm working my way out. Yeah, Christian, so we'll go. Yeah, so the new signings, I mean, 2 big signings. I mean, when I say big, I mean tall.
Both
big boys. Cam, so yeah, we'll talk about Cam Dodson. So out of GCU, the whole
expected to be the number 1 pick in the draft.
Exactly.
Should have been a Jackal.
Oh, sorry. Austin's better than Dawes anyway. So. But yeah, so that's kind of, that was big to hear that he's coming. The whole eligibility issue. I don't really know. Again, I'm not going to get into that. There was a lot of stuff said in a lot of different ways about whether or not he was eligible, but he's just excited that we signed
MLR.
him. Yeah, he's in the MLR. He's playing, which is exciting because he is a force. And yes, Christian Osberg, the CEO, I do love he's like that. My title for him, so I've been designing some stuff for guys that we've re-signed. So I'm really excited to start building out.
I had a quick question. So I know he'd been playing second row in Aurillac. Is that right?
In Aurillac, yeah.
In France, is he going to be a second rower here, or is he going to move to the back row?
I mean, he's 6'6".
He is 7.
He's 6'6", and 6'6", and his specialty has been 4.
Yeah.
So so just FYI, there's only 2 bigger CEO fans than me, and that's Matt's and Tracy. Yeah, his parents. Okay. so I've been a CEO fan since he was playing at Rock Rugby.
Yeah, exactly.
And
that's the other big thing. Like he's a hometown guy.
And he is a real hometown boy, considering where they're playing at, where their field is at. I mean, he's right down the road from his mom and dad's house.
Yeah. So it's exciting to have him. But yeah, I think you look at it right now, and you have both just from a front row that standpoint, or a front row, but from a 4-5 standpoint, you've got 6'6", 6'7", 240, 250, 251. Like that's a motor house right there. Like those guys are going to be pushing hard, and you especially pushing Whopper right behind it. Pushing Whopper and whoever else is going to be in that front row. So yes, I wasn't trying to bury the lead. I am excited about Christian.
I feel like there's a name missing on there.
Oh, I've got some
of going to Austin. Are you allowed to release that name?
I hear so many rumors about who's coming to Austin. I can tell you that I've heard 1,000,001 people are coming to Austin, and Adam Ashley Cooper. I don't actually know if he's going to come this year now. He was supposed to come last year. Don't know if that's happening. So Christian, from what I've heard, I mean, there's photos of him already training. Like in the video they did, he was already training with Austin last season before the end of the season.
Yes, that's correct.
So
but I've heard there's a center from Premier League, Premiership coming over.
Who have you heard? You can say names. You're not. Yeah, your team. That's my team. I don't know. I honestly I have no idea.
No confirmation. All right.
Yeah, I can't confirm. I don't know. So yeah,
we want to get in trouble. I hear you.
I don't know. Listen. We go to everything is like, oh, Matt Giddo is going to play in LA, or he may come play here. What? He even came out on social media and said, I'm not going. No, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to play. But I will say I am excited. Yes, I'm excited for those two signings, because those are quote unquote new signings. We also signed Louis Satima from AIC in the draft. He is just a wrecking ball. Be interesting to see kind of how he performs. He is a smaller center, so I don't know if he'll actually play in the centers, or maybe I see him as kind of the same as Roderick Waters, short, stocky, and just full of power. So I wonder if they may kind of interchange him out on the wing. And then Mason Cock from Dartmouth was our pick as hooker. Right. Unfortunately, we did lose a hooker, and I was really sad about that, and losing Tion. We lost 2 hookers in Chris Shade and Tion. And so right now, technically, because we haven't announced if any other hookers have signed with us or anything else, we only have Mason. Don't know about Brendan Rams, who was kind of the backup for Tion this season. Obviously Shady was out hurt, for the last couple games. So
I
that's
know Shade is trying to start up
Ohio.
he's trying to get money for Columbus
Yep.
professional MLR team. So
Well, I think, and he's, he'll be the first to tell you that he's still trying to recover from injury, and we wish him the best. Like, Shady's a great guy. Like, I'll have him on the podcast again just because he was just, I mean, been here since year one, just a fantastic guy. We also lost Skylar Adams went to Dallas. So you get Skylar, a great young prop. So he was also AIC, but also in the Crusaders Academy. And then Wilton Rabolo, that one started off the season with Austin. He got in a training match, got injured, got a really pretty good knock in the head, and was out with concussion protocol for a while. But I just didn't think that was the right fit. I just think the playing style was not the right fit for them. But I am excited for the re-signings, and there's a couple of reasons why. So re-signings for us, Mason Peterson and Zinzan Ellen Puddock. Zinzan, my buddy, captain, both he and Mason have been here since year one. And so that's pretty exciting to have those guys come back, kind of be the heart and soul. Like Mason had kind of a breakout couple games. Like last season, Mason played all right for some games. I thought he had a little bit off and on, but I think this season, man, he just came out full force. And with him and Jamie, on either side of that pack, I think they really did really well towards the end of the season. We also got back Roderick is confirmed. Lerone White is confirmed. So that's a great another more forwards that are doing well. Mo Abdominan. So Mo has more ball steals. He's one of the best. I think he's one of the best breakdown players in MLR. And then Dom Aquina. Dom is somebody who, man, I was disappointed to see the season stop because of just the way that he plays.
He has a lot of potential. That guy should be an Eagle someday.
If not in the next year or two. Like I think that his ability, his raw talent is phenomenal. Like his athleticism is through the roof. I remember at our combine last year, I recorded him in his high jump, the one where he literally jumped over the top of the high. Like it was one of the craziest things I've seen. So that's exciting to see him. Dominique Bailey, was out injured all of last season for us. Really excited to see him come back too. So that'll be a good one for us. And then, Will McGee, and it hasn't been announced by the team, but who was it? DJ Coyle, Doug, he had posted that Kurt Morath. And I'm pretty sure Kurt Morath is coming back. He is in Austin, or he is in Round Rock. He lives there with his family right now. Looking forward to seeing, he again got injured with I think a bruised rib or broken rib or something in that Houston game, and Will kind of slotted in at fly at the end. So, a good bunch of people coming back, solid team. But as you can see, there's a lot of empty spots right now. Yeah. And I think for Austin, there may not be three big things, but I think one of the biggest things is what's the new coaching staff going to do? There were some players that were announced last year coming over from Australia that didn't get a chance to get over because of visas, and then the season cut short. So the question will be, what will they do? What will Austin do? There was promise. Again, you saw promise every game last season, and the build up to what they were to the win against Houston to kind of break that streak that, had been going on forever. But I think the excitement is the style of play, the flow of rugby that they have. What will that look like going into 2021? So my big three things, big news articles, news of the days, or, whatever it may be, are going to be just kind of looking at the coaching staff. That's, the new coaches, Sam Harris and Mark Gerard. Also, the CEO is coming in, the big news signings with Osberg and Dodson coming in, and then all the guys coming back. I'm kind of excited for those guys coming back because it's a core group of guys and they all have some extremely good skill. And that kind of excites me for what they do. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So with the Jackals, brand new club for MLR. This has been in the works forever, obviously, because Phil Cam.
Since season one.
Well, before season one, you remember Phil Cam as the owner, president, whatever he wanted to call himself, of the Allen, or they were the Frisco Griffins briefly, then the Allen Griffins, and then the Dallas Griffins before they fell apart. And we wondered what was happening. because we knew he had been involved initially with the structure of MLR, and then the team was announced as being a team that was going to compete, and then all of a sudden wasn't going to compete next year. Oh, it'll be next year. Oh, it'll be next year. Literally, the running joke on Reddit was, what are the new teams going to be? Next new teams. They're like, well, I mean, Dallas. No, maybe not.
Maybe not.
Like, let's just put the Dallas rumor aside. We'll talk about other new teams.
Yeah.
But we finally have a new team.
You are going to play this year, right?
We are going to play this year. We drafted players.
Are you sure?
Dustin, man.
A full side of players.
Rick, you need to apply cold water that burn.
Oh,
sorry, man. Had to.
So,
it was too easy.
We had a really good draft, I thought, actually. And the funny part was
you had 15 picks.
Was like, oh, we're getting Cam Dodson. We getting the second row is going to be a freaking monster and everything. And then like Connor Mooneyham gets drafted. I'm thinking, well, I had Connor Mooneyham as a guy we were going to draft, but into the first round, beginning of the second round guy, not first pick in the draft, because I thought we were going to get Cam Dodson. Yeah. And then the rumors were, oh, he wasn't draft eligible. And then everybody's like, what? No, that's not true. So I think there was still confusion about that. And then maybe that's just not the way this team wanted to be built. So Connor Mooneyham being the first round pick, along with Hunkin Clark, you started to see as the draft picks went on for Dallas, the style of play that they're looking for. They're looking for guys who don't necessarily fit a certain structure of play automatically, like right off the bat. They're looking for guys who can play in the loose and make plays, make things happen when things break down. So all the draft picks are all those types of players, great ball skills players. But then you look at like what happens in the set play, right?
Yeah.
And Hunkin Clark is kind of a betweener. I see him as a 7. He's not big enough to be a second row. He's not really an 8 in terms of his running style. He's not a 6. But then later on, they get Bronson Tellis, who I think very clearly is a 6.
Yeah.
I mean, he if there's a reincarnation of Honko, it's him. Like,
I'm going to disagree with you there.
You're going to disagree with me on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bronson Tellis was came up as an 8.
I say 8.
He's got the speed of a 7, but he doesn't have all the stopping power of a 6 like Honko does.
Yeah.
But stopping an 8-man coming off, that's not his specialty. Grabbing the ball in the line out, that's Bronson's specialty. He's a sure thing. Just put the ball up in his general space, he's going to come down with it. He's great off the back of the scrum, and he's also a pretty solid leader of a back row.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
the only reason I don't see him as an 8 is just because
you have some solid 8s there. In camaraderie, yeah. I mean, you can't. I mean, yeah. But Bronson is a 7 or an 8, and has been for a very long time. His father raised him that way, and he's played anywhere from 4 to 8.
Yeah.
And can. But really, he's a 7 or an 8. His speed is what makes him a 7.
He played 4 quite a bit in college at Arizona, and then before that, I think it was Texas State, if I'm not mistaken. And you just look at his height. There's just no way he's not big enough to play second row. No. Certainly strong enough, but not big enough. So yeah.
Do you think they'll interchange him out? Kind of as some rugby teams, depending on whether or not they're attacking or defending the scrum, they'll switch out their 7 and 8.
So that's what
happened a lot with New Zealand with the All Blacks.
If you look at the roster, it's very flexible.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of guys that can play a lot of different positions. Lannon, I actually think could be a guy that you develop into a 10. His skill set is in the line of playing 10. But he's a 12 right now, but he's not there yet. I mean, he's got a lot of work to do. I wouldn't be surprised he starts off playing with the Quins or the Reds for a season at least.
Yeah. Well, with Bronson, you get one of the best team moms in the world, in Annie. She really is. She's you talk about somebody who's organized and takes care of her players. I mean, she's great. And then with his dad, you get the loudest cheer in the cheering section.
Yeah,
And
and we'll need that because the monster
This is a
stadium that we're going
stadium.
to play. I'll hold off on that for a second.
Yeah.
So the draft picks with Van Lanen, Hunkin Clark, Mooneyham, and Tellis. The only player of those I could see starting right off the bat might be Tellis. Mooneyham maybe, depending on who else they sign.
Yeah.
I just think physically Tellis is ready to play kind of right away. It just depends on where they're at and how they think his skill set's going to work with the rest of the players I have.
Yeah.
And then they signed Cream O'Day, life prop. Also, you'll notice that there's quite a few USA All-Americans in their signings. They're also almost entirely signing guys who are 26 years old or younger. There's almost nobody except for the two Chads that are over 26 years old, I believe.
Yeah.
Maybe the lock from Samoa, Theo McFarland, he may be 27 by the time the season starts, if I'm not mistaken. But you got
good youth.
Two Chads, right? London and Goff, who probably right now, if you look at this roster, are probably the captains of the team, co-captains of the team, coming from the Raptors. And a lot of people making jokes that the
Dallas
Jackals
is the new Raptors.
are Raptors South. We literally have signed like half of the Raptors roster, but mostly the young guys. So now also in the backs, you've got Ryan James Jr., Campbell Johnstone, guys that, weren't getting time with the Raptors. They were playing with the Merlins mostly.
Yeah.
So you're seeing, okay, there's a clear idea of what they want to do, which is get young American talent and build up from there. I don't think there's a concern about losing a lot of games in the first couple of seasons. I wouldn't be surprised if we have some very ugly first couple of seasons because, the goal is, I think, building a program, and the age just tells me that.
Yeah.
They did go and sign Theo McFarland, Samoan lock, Hank Stevenson, a young Canadian lock, James Malcolm, the Scottish hooker, who I really think is interesting. They got Chad Go, and then they go out and sign him, and they're close to the same age, a couple of years apart. How are they going to manage, the game time? Maybe, as Go's getting a little bit older, that he's not going to play as much. I think there's definitely some decisions to be made there.
But how old is he? He's 20.
He's 28. He turns 29 before the season starts.
I'd say that's prime for a front rower though. But that's years of experience right there.
My guess, just based on what I've seen, is that James Malcolm is probably a better player right at this moment. So
interesting.
I think that's a tough one. And then Vian Conradi, the Namibian flanker, played flanker for the national team. He's probably the 8-man. If I was going to put an 8-man right now, he's my 8.
Yeah.
And then we also signed Fafita. I've also heard that we're waiting on the announcement of the other prop from Colorado. No comment on who that might be. And in fact, I've heard he's already here in Dallas. And then I thought the other interesting
get in trouble
that they did sign Gino, who I actually had pegged watching the Quinn season. It's a scrum half, but they had signed Carlo Denison from the Raptors, and both of those guys are about the same age.
Yeah.
I think Carlo's clearly the better player, but Gino probably goes back to the Quins and plays another season with the Quins, and if there's an injury with Carlo, he comes up. Maybe he sits on the bench. Some interesting decisions for the team right now. So the thing is that they've signed all these players, and there's a lot of players that are very quality players in the loose, but what happens at the set piece? I think they're counting on, training the set piece. They're not looking for guys who are specifically great scrummagers or great line-out jumpers or lifters at this moment. They're looking for guys who can go out and just play rugby, and then they're going to figure out the set piece once they can actually practice, which is a little nerve-wracking because it could be one of those where we just get murdered in the set piece. But at least it looks like it's going to be an entertaining team.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you guys have again, any new team, you're always going to have building. You got to start building somewhere, right? Like that's
Yeah.
not that's not going to be, even with Austin. Like last year was kind of a rebuilding year. Still kind of working on that rebuilding, kind of an extended rebuilding for a year and a half or so until 2021. So we'll see where that goes. But I think the same thing for you guys. You got a lot of young talent, a lot of interesting selections in the draft, a lot of interesting signings that you've had too. So we'll see where it goes for sure.
I'm excited that we at least have what is eventually going to be a front row that has played in MLR and been decently successful in MLR. So can kind of count that it's not just going to fall apart in the front row, at least right off the bat. And then some interesting young pieces that, can fill in. I think the biggest, questions are going to be, how's it going to work with the stadium? So you look at a team like this, and the initial thought, I think, was for a stadium, they had bought this property near the American Airlines Center, Rivershawn Park, and it's just a small baseball field that they were going to rehabilitate and make into a multi-sport field, including rugby. And it's currently owned by Donnie Nelson's business group. So the idea was, well, Donnie's not just buying this for S's and giggles, right?
Yeah.
He's buying this to put a professional.
Sorry, are we keeping this PG-13, by the way?
Well, at least 13. Maybe I'll say it once. Are they going to play at this kind of small field? It kind of makes sense for a new team. It would only sit probably 2,500 to 3,000 right off the bat, with plans to expand on it.
Yeah.
But now we're playing at Globe Life Park, which seats 40,000. Adjusted, I think it's like 28,000 or something like that for the XFL team. Yeah. And apparently because the XFL fell apart, as some of y'all gained some, admin people from XFL, as we have.
We didn't. Oh, you guys did. We did.
Houston did, at least.
Houston did.
Now we're going to be playing in what would have been, an XFL stadium, is also being used by the USL2 FC Dallas minor league team, North Texas SC. I'm struggling with how that stadium is going to work for rugby. Is it as bad as maybe New York with Coney Park? Or
listen, we played at Dell Diamond last season.
I don't want to hear anybody talk about bad. We played at Dyer Stadium.
Oh yeah, that's right. Season.
So I don't want to hear any of y'all talk about what's bad.
Yeah,
okay?
Listen. I mean, what
Let me tell you, the grass on a baseball field, on a professionally maintained baseball field, is fast.
Yeah.
And when it rains, it drains off really quick.
Yeah.
And so they know how to make those stadiums into rugby and football stadiums and soccer stadiums. Minor league baseball has been making money off their stadiums for years, and that's the way they make money. That's the way they keep that team on the field.
Yep.
Is by renting that stadium out to anybody who will use it in the off season.
Yeah. I'm concerned about how it's going to look on TV, I think, the most.
I mean, it's going to look how it's going to look. And I say that only in the way that so many teams in MLR have started off in baseball fields.
Yeah.
Playing in baseball fields. We did it.
Well,
the Eagles have done it.
Eagles played a game they played against Brazil.
I think American rugby fans are so used to seeing rugby in baseball fields now, it's not even an issue anymore.
Yeah,
I think it's worse on a football field, actually, for that matter, just because of all the lines. It's very confusing.
I think the one thing
and
that's
going to be
and the crown of the field. Well,
so
as a former groundskeeper, I totally understand. As a minor league, I was an assistant groundskeeper for a minor league baseball team for years. Like that was my first degree. So I totally understand that.
So having that experience, I came down and watched a match at the stadium in Round Rock. The
Austin Bowl? Round Rock
not
Express.
The baseball field, the multi-sport.
Yeah.
And then I came down the next year and watched one of the baseball stadium, and it was nice to have like fireworks and all this stuff that they put on video board and everything at the baseball stadium.
It's terrible.
But I was like, the experience was way better at the multi-use park. You
Well,
felt like
for rugby fans, for guys who have been in rugby and around rugby for years, yes, because we're closer to the action at the multi-use parks.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
We're almost right on top of it because rugby's the biggest field in that multi-use arena.
Yeah.
But hey, we're not there when we get into the baseball fields, because you've got to make these 64 by 89 uh, field of play structures with these 5-meter, 7-meter deep in goals. So you don't really have a big field in baseball.
No.
Yeah.
And I think, it's not like Grant said, like we're just the rugby, the long-term rugby fans are just so used to watching rugby in the places that look, oh, that's a beautiful stadium. It's an open field. It's not a baseball field. Those who are new are saying, oh, it's on a baseball field. That's fine. Whatever. Most people don't care. They don't know. But those baseball fields have given us the ability to have a location to play.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the field that's the issue. Dell Diamond did a great job when we were there because they actually took out the infield dirt and it was all grass. So that was
AT&T Park at Rugby World Cup Sevens.
Yep, exactly.
It was beautiful.
They did that too. I know Rooney didn't have that capability when they're out at the Coney Island area. Like they had the dirt on the field. And that's actually
not dirt.
Is it not dirt?
No, that's a turf. That's a turf field. It's an artificial turf field, a 4G field.
Oh,
and that's brown. It's brown grass. That's why they couldn't make it green.
Okay. Weird. And so that I think the biggest issue is it does, like when you go to the games at the baseball fields, it feels like you're playing in kind of a cavern because you're talking about, and this I think will be the biggest problem in Dallas, right? So when Austin played at Dell Diamond, it was getting, opening game, almost 2,000 people were there, which is a good sized crowd for the opening game with fireworks and everything else. It was a great opening match, in 2019. 2019. However, that's an 11,000 person stadium.
Right.
So it looks empty. Like all the games looked empty. Granted, we had the worst weather in history for
oh my God.
It was terrible. Like grapple and all this other shit. Sorry. See, I dropped it right there.
There's the one S.
There's the one S that we're allowed to say. Sorry. Yes. We'll have parental advisory now.
I've been the cleanest guy on this thing so far.
I've been surprised. But anyway, so I think the biggest issue is how it sounds, how the stadiums sound, how it feels when you're there because you're in the environment. And that's going to be the biggest thing. You're talking 40,000 person stadium.
Yeah.
If you get, I'm being a bit of a pessimist. If you get 2,000 people to your first game, it's going to be great for you guys, but it's going to feel like there's nothing happening there.
Yeah.
And it's sad.
I think the way the sound's going to be and everything, it's going to be a challenge.
However, major sports have been doing really well at artificially adding sound to their broadcasts. So maybe that's something with no crowds.
I'm going to suggest it for sure.
Oh,
so my big three things is having a team. One, that's number one, is Dallas finally getting the team and having players. We have coaches and we have players. So we have
come to us when you actually have players and coaches on the field together.
Yeah, it's going to be a while. We're going to get to that in a minute.
You have a stadium.
I think so. We have a stadium. Also, we have players, and we have a great ownership group. So it's one thing I hadn't mentioned yet.
Yeah.
Donnie Nelson, the Mavericks GM, and Neil Liebman, who's the Rangers COO, and their business backings are the ownership group. And I think it's an ownership group that's going to be patient, which is really nice, right? They've been patient with other projects that they've had. They're lower level than their major league teams, their professional teams.
And you need ownership groups that are either patient or well heeled.
Yeah,
you can lose a lot of money and not really be hurt.
And I think we have both, to be honest. And then I think the group below that, the administration group, we brought in Scott Sanju to be the president. He did amazing work. If y'all don't know the Rough Riders minor league baseball team, they're like one of the tops in terms of getting butts in seats and sales really well. And everything else. They do a bang up job. So getting him in is awesome. And then obviously with Elaine, Alan Clark, Lee Radford, we've got a coaching staff. Elaine is assistant GM to Phil Cam, which is kind of a weird setup, I think, because she's an assistant GM and an assistant coach. So and we've talked about this off camera and everywhere else. it's kind of one of those situations that you think, kind of like what San Diego's doing. How long is that going to last, where you have kind of people sharing the same duties? So there's a lot of exciting stuff, but the three items being team, stadium, players, and ownership group. So we're excited.
That's
And
awesome.
we got a big
You
fan
got a lot
base.
to be excited about.
Yeah, I mean, and let's talk about the other great thing first is that there are three people give us a hard time being Texas. They're like, oh, there are three teams. Like, it also takes 3 hours to get to each one of our locations.
Yeah.
Like, for
for
those watching right now,
be thankful it only takes you 3 hours to get anywhere.
Yeah.
It takes me 4.5, 5 hours to get to Houston, and then I got to deal with that North Houston traffic after you hit Woodlands. Oh my Lord.
Yeah, so that high spell, but yeah, that's the thing is we're just we continue to talk about the people in MLR are like, oh well, Texas got another team. Well, Texas is a big ass state.
Yes.
Like,
What we have is we have a market for that.
Exactly,
Yes.
We've got a market for that.
Yeah, and team owners see that.
Yeah, we've got a market for it. We've got the history of rugby. And, again, that's why we want to do this, talk about monthly rugby. And that, Grant, that's a perfect segue to talk into the rest of the stuff that we're going to talk about. Because it is. Texas is more than MLR. It's more than having three teams in MLR now. It's talking about the TRU. It's talking about club level and stuff. I think, I don't know which one of you guys have been around the TRU and been around club level rugby here in Texas longer than I have. For sure, since I'm I'm the transplant down to this wonderful state. But for the most part, I don't know who would like to discuss kind of the current going on with the state of rugby as it is during COVID in the TRU and what some of the decisions have been made. I don't know, Rick, if you want to after.
Yeah,
that,
sure. I'll jump in. I just read the notes from their meeting yesterday. They're obviously they're looking at HTX joining Division One. I think it would be great to have two teams in each of the MLR cities, right? So you have the two Houston teams, two Austin teams, and two Dallas teams playing in Division One. I think that would be great support for academy teams that would then go into the MLR teams. That feels like good structure for me. I think the issue right now is like we can't make any decisions. There's not we literally we can't play anything. As Grant, you mentioned earlier, we're in phase 2 where you can't share a ball, you can't touch each other. Basically, if you're out at the field, you're doing activities on your own. Yeah. Right. So you could get your team out to the field, but you can't. You got to stay 6 feet away from each other. And this is by TRU rules. This is by the cities as well. Yeah. That it's social distancing and it's mask wearing, and it just doesn't make sense. I think right now to even look at a fall season, and I think Grant is y'all have looked at. I know we're looking at spring season, right? A full spring season for club rugby.
Yeah, we're planning for some fall games, and with the understanding that if RTP doesn't allow, we don't play. Yeah, and that's just all there is to it. I mean, we're going to try and make it happen, but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Yeah. I think one of the things that's really important all over the nation is in the restructuring of USA Rugby, the competitive regions have dissolved altogether. The committees have dissolved altogether. Yeah, right. I mean, and so the competitive regions have, and so the Red River Rugby Conference Committee is now the TRU's governing board. Still got all the same people on it until they come up for re-election, but I think that's something that not a whole lot of other GUs have. Yeah, if any have it at all, is that we're a GU that is going to keep the same leadership structure going into this next season. Yeah.
For those that don't know what a GU is, can you tell?
Oh, so a geographical union. So there's what, 8 or 9? Is there 8 or 9?
I think 9, I think.
9. Yeah. 9 geographical unions in the U.S. right now. In fact, there's a whole brouhaha over in England because World Rugby doesn't understand why California is 2 different unions. Look, I don't understand.
It might as well be two different states. Let's be
Look,
honest.
look. England has 4 different. The UK islands, the British Isles, have 4 different unions in a space of land that's half of California. Okay, and they want to know why we have 2 different unions in California. Those guys need to get a grip. Quit trying to put their ideas on us, and try and understand how we work, and what can work for us. So anyway, so now the Red River's part of the TRU. Kirk Tate, our president for the last 3 years and for the next 3 years. Congratulations, Kirk. Although you probably don't expect that, think that that's a congratulatory issue. It's more like a sentence.
I heard only one person voted, and they voted for him. So
yeah, it was only one nomination. It was for Kirk. So
the question is, which one of us is going to try to get a nomination for the next one? Rick?
Not me.
Sounds like Dustin.
Not me.
No. Oh.
I love what I'm doing right now, managing this team, and this is kind of what I do better than coaching or anything else I do.
Yeah. And I love to be critical and analytic and give my opinion and not have any input and not actually make an action on it, just to give my thoughts instead. So I'll just what's that? Yeah, this is perfect for me, just to tell them how bad a job they're doing, but not actually act on it.
and then Kurt's also the chair of USA's Senior Club Council.
Yeah.
So I mean, and we've had, which is makes sense, because Texas has had such continuity for years. To have him be the chair of the club council makes sense. I mean, he's been part of that. He's been a leader in that. He's been a builder in that. So it makes perfect sense for him to undergo that. Now the structure, the divisional structure, especially on the men's side.
Oh, it's a friggin' mess.
It was it's a mess, but hey, Dodgy and crew are doing their best to make this work. So,
well, and I think the biggest problem, right, is that you have teams that are, performing extremely well on the field, but don't have the structure internally really, or the financing to move up.
Yeah.
And then you have teams that kind of refuse to move up because they're like, oh, we love this Division III stuff.
Yeah, but if they move up a division, their internal structure, their mindset is not made for the next level.
Right. Yeah.
Their mindset's made for the level they're at. And a lot of these Division III teams that don't ever need to move up to Division II are in areas that are highly transient.
Yeah.
And they maybe they're playing well, but that's because they got 4 new players in from out overseas that they didn't have last year. But next year, those 4 players are going to be gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got a team like, one of the things I've always thought is just terrible about our club structure is its ideas about promotion and relegation.
Yeah.
Okay. To me, if you earn a chance for promotion, you should be able to choose whether you want to fight for that chance or not. Yeah. If you earn a chance for relegation, you shouldn't have to go down unless you think you need to, or unless the team that's being promoted that has a chance for promotion challenges you to a couple of games to see who's actually better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think people mix up promotion relegation in the club structure in the U.S. when they think about it in Europe, or they think about it in other places, because that structure there's professional levels. Right? Yeah. There's the rugby championship and the premiership. So those teams,
and they're accredited teams.
Exactly. And they're like, it's not the same structure here in the U.S. where, these teams, like I played D3, D2, and D1 like many years ago. So like I played in that level. On the D3 team, like we went to the national Final Four. They're like, hey, do you guys want to move up to D? You guys can now move up to D2. And we said, do we want to do that? Can we manage that? Who's going to be around next year? Just as you said, Grant, like you don't know if some guys are going to move out of town, which actually did happen. Like we had a core group of about 25 guys. 5 guys moved away. If we didn't fill those spots, we now had a D2 team trying to play, further apart, because you got to travel further and travel more. And so it's a club level, if you should have the opportunity. I agree with you wholeheartedly, Grant. You have the opportunity to basically say, nope, I think we're okay. We're going to stay here. Like,
And then I'm a big proponent of no D2, D3 national championship rounds, period.
Because of the cost.
Because of the cost. And
it's
that way, I
insane.
mean, and so many times we've seen in the past where a D3 team or D2 team has played well. And I mean, here in Texas, look at Fort Worth, look at the Woodlands, look at Euless, playing so well over the years and having good years, and then having to spend 3 weekends traveling, on $25,000 that they had to raise like that.
Yeah.
And they're barely being able to pay for vans and hotel rooms, and the hotel rooms they can find are, the no-tell motels out in the boonies in the town
It's
where
out
it's
where
at.
Rick lives.
Yeah, yeah, and then you've got to play 2 games on a weekend when you've never played 2 games on a weekend
Yeah.
in the whole competition.
Yeah.
It's just it's not feasible.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make sense. I mean, these guys are here for recreational play.
No.
Give them a championship at their GU and make it mean something, right? And if Division 1, if you want to play for a national championship, if you individually you want to play for a national championship, get yourself on a D1 squad and play to a national club championship, and there should be one national club championship, and that's it. D1.
Yeah.
I will applaud that and wholeheartedly
Preaching to the
agree
choir
with you.
right here.
Yeah, exactly. So
there was a club survey done 5 or 6 years ago. I can't remember the exact date, but it was not an official club survey, but it was very well answered. And 85% of the clubs nationwide that answered the survey said that they would rather, especially, and I'm saying 85% of the D2, D3 clubs nationwide said they didn't need to go for a national championship.
Yeah. It feels like it's one of those things where USA Rugby just felt like, okay, well, if we have this division, we have to have a national championship. And so they structured it that way and didn't really consider like the fact that, it's not like the Reds or maybe the Huns or Blacks or whoever else who have like 4 levels, right? They could afford to send, 4 teams to national championships. And most of the D3, D4 teams have 25 players, like you said. They might have 40 or 50 club members total.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
And half of those people aren't even players,
barely paying their dues.
And how do you get enough money to be able to do it? It just doesn't make any sense.
No.
Yeah, I mean, to me, D2 and D3 rugby is just, I mean, you're playing to see who the tallest toddler is. I mean, I love them. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not being mean when I say that.
Yeah.
But that's really it's really what we're doing there is who's the best in the small pond.
Yeah.
And we should be having fun at this game. And hey, we should win some games, but we shouldn't have to break the bank.
Yeah.
Beyond our season.
Yeah. Let's quickly look at university high school youth.
I was going to say, speaking of getting down to toddlers or smaller, younger.
Exactly. So right now, I'm the director of rugby / head coach for SMU, and we're at stage 3, which for us is different than the stage 2 for TRU or whatever. But we're in a phase where you can't have organized practices. You can't have coaches on campus. So even if we applied to be on campus or tested, or it can't be on campus.
Yeah.
We're not students. We can't be on campus. What was it? Oh, no travel, no games. So we're literally stuck in the mud right now. The next level up, and the reason that they've got these different levels is because different sports are doing different things at different levels. So golf, they can do whatever they want right now.
Yeah.
They can go play, right? They can go train, they can go play. It doesn't matter. But for rugby, we're basically stuck in the mud until we're normal.
Yeah.
Right. So the next phase would get us to a point where we can have coaches on campus, but we have to apply to be certified to go on campus. The team can meet, but everybody has to social distance, wear masks, can't share balls, can't hit scrummaging pads. Like we can't do anything. So it would be go out and make the guys do fitness. right? And that's the next level up. And then we're at normal after that. So right now we're looking at, maybe we can organize a tournament in November or early December, something like that. And then looking at a Lone Star Conference season in the spring. Right now, we're not even thinking about playing in the fall.
Yeah.
And high school, I've heard from high school coaches, their fall season is done. They can't touch a ball.
Yeah.
They're looking at spring. They're looking ahead because these kids are going to school and doing all this stuff. They can't even say, hey, maybe we'll play in the fall. They're just saying there's no fall ball.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of, unfortunately, that's the current landscape we're in, right?
And I don't know. So Abilene Christian, I talked to their coach, and they're all in. They're ready to play a season. So it does seem to be just kind of regional, depending on where you are, especially if you're in a big city. What's the situation in Houston, Grant?
Well, I mean, we're leading the way, so if you know anything about the COVID numbers and you know what I do for a job, you know that I have to keep up with that stuff every day for my job, and I have to keep up with it on a global basis. And does anybody know that Texas has the sixth largest number of COVID cases in the world?
Yeah.
If Texas was its own country,
Yeah.
it would have the sixth largest number of COVID cases in the world.
Can we
And
put that
Houston,
up there with being like fifth in gold medals at that one Olympics? Remember, I think you said if Texas was a country, it'd be in fifth place for gold medals.
Yeah.
Put those
And,
up on the board next to each
no,
other.
exactly like that. And Houston's, man, we're feeling it every day here.
Yeah.
So it's you get out on the freeway in Houston, and you would normally drive the speed limit, but nobody's really on the freeway, and those who are on it are driving 85, 90. It's like being on the Beltway in Dallas.
Yeah.
Or the
So, I
Autobahn
mean,
in Germany.
I know how that is.
Yeah, so I mean, it's you really get a sense of that, but then your medical professional friends, and the folks that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis in the medical profession, like I do, they are so tired.
Mhm.
They can't. They just go home. They collapse. They get something to eat. They collapse. They get up. They eat. They go back to work, and it's crazy here right now. I wouldn't want if my kid was in school, I wouldn't want him going back to school. He's a delivery driver for AutoZone, and he has to do so much stuff just to, make sure that he's doing the right thing every day, delivering parts, because people's cars still got to go, right?
Yep.
Mechanics still got to work. So that kind of stuff doesn't shut down. So you have to make amends, but it doesn't stop it from happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not getting any better here. There's no high school rugby here. There's probably no college rugby here. From what I understand, A&M's not playing in the fall. You look at A&M's football schedule. They parsed it down to just their SEC schedule, and they're only going to fill the stadium up to 30% capacity.
Wow.
So that's a stadium that holds 116,000 people is only going to have 35,000 people in it
That's
for a
still
game.
crowd. I'll take that in a rugby match.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, that's not even your complete student body.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 35,000. That's only 60% of your student body.
And the logistics behind that, I don't know. Like, and that kind of goes for all sports right now. It's the logistics behind doing sporting events, whether it's high school, whether it's professional, whether it's college. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, and if I was going to say something about rugby outside of MLR is that it doesn't really bring any money. So let's just be safe.
Yeah,
exactly.
Wait till it's viable to do it.
Well, kind of
as much as we all miss it, at least we can watch some though. There is some rugby on TV.
Rugby is happening. I was reserved for a little while to watching some NLR or NRL because that was the only thing that was on. So
Aussie rules.
No, NRL. No. League, not union. So different code. But on that note, guys, it's fun to sit down and talk about this. I'm glad we got a chance to do this. As everybody knows and watching, like, this is Texas Rugby Monthly. We're going to get together every month, whether we're playing or not, and just talk about the things that are going on, and not just in Houston, not just in Dallas, not just in Austin, but the entire state of Texas. Hopefully we'll have some people on from TRU, have different coaching staffs on, have different players on, and just talk about Texas rugby. Any final thoughts, Grant?
Hey, just want to make sure that when we do get back to it, let's understand that, hey, what we were doing in the past club-wise wasn't always working. Let's try and make a better show of it and give some people respect and try to have more people playing better rugby out there.
Yeah.
I know that doesn't always mean anything, but it means something to me.
Yep.
And I think respecting the referees, to me, one of the biggest issues we've had.
Big deal there.
Yes,
Big deal.
At least in Texas.
And that
rugby.
starts with coaches. With coaches.
Yep. And I think that's
the ref
to go forward.
Respect the sir. Know that. That's a big one. Rick, that's your final thought there?
Final thought. Hey,
Awesome.
first show, I think it was a good one.
Yep, absolutely. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. This has been Texas Rugby Monthly. For Grant Cole, Rick Collins, I'm Dustin Zerrer. Remember, have your pets spayed and neutered. Control the animal population. Thanks for joining us.